Welcome to Life as a Dog Trainer, putting your career where your heart is. I'm Veronica Boutelle, dogbiz founder, and I am so happy to guide you through an exploration of what it means to live life as a dog trainer. We'll be looking at the day-to-day rhythm of life as a dog trainer, all of the awesome bits, and maybe a few challenges that you might not be able to anticipate from the outside. We'll take a look also at what you can make as a dog trainer, the income potential of this career choice. And I'm going to wrap with the two main steps to get your dog training career off to a successful start. So let's jump in. First, I just want to take a moment to celebrate that you are thinking about becoming a superhero for dogs, also known as a dog trainer. This is really fantastic because there are dogs and people in your community who need you. And plus, it's a wonderful way to make a living helping these creatures that you're truly passionate about enjoy richer, fuller lives with the people who love them. But what is the life of a dog trainer? What does it really look like to be a superhero for dogs? First of all, expect to be the most interesting person at every dinner party, every gathering, every conversation in line at the grocery store. Anytime the conversation turns to, so what do you do for a living? You will be the center of attention. There is something about this work that is so compelling to people, and it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, not only are so many people out there dog lovers, but this is also still considered a little bit of an unusual way to make a living, right? I think people are really drawn to dog trainers because we have taken the unusual step of truly putting our careers where our hearts are, of following our passion in our work lives. And so just, expect to be the center of attention. You also get to live your life in jeans and tennis shoes, right? And there's no having to put on all the accoutrement of office wear. You really get to live comfortably, and that also means enjoying a largely flexible schedule. Not only do you not have to get up in the morning and put on a suit and a tie or heels or all of the sort of uniform aspect of work, you also get to decide when you get up. You get to decide when you put the hours in, what your schedule looks like. You also get to wake up every morning passionate about going to work. You get to go to bed every night knowing that you made a difference. You get to control who you work with, right? You get to decide who your clients are, and how wonderful that so many of your clients are four-legged as well. There's no more difficult coworkers and unreasonable bosses. You really are in charge. You get to decide to a great degree what the rhythm of your daily work life looks like. And there's some challenges in that too. We'll talk about a little bit later. You also get to create an income for yourself, and you can expect that income to range anywhere from roughly $40,000 a year to six figures a year, depending on the size of the business that you create, the services that you choose to offer, and the attention that you give to the business side of dog training, which is something that we're going to talk about a bit later as well. Now, right now, because your schedule, its level of flexibility, essentially the rhythm of your days, and your income potential will all be closely tied to the dog training services that you choose to offer. Let's take a look at the various service formats that you have to choose from. Being a dog trainer looks different, a lot different, depending on how you choose to share your knowledge and skills with your community. Your service choices determine your income, the kind of work you do, the rhythm of your days, the level and type of impact that you have. So let's look at the main service options and do some comparison so you can see what I mean. We'll start with group dog training classes. Now, it's interesting when you think about, as a class instructor, how you'll spend your time, you have to recognize that a lot of your focus is actually on group teaching, on teaching people, and much less so on teaching dogs. And so one of the challenges of group dog training classes is that you have to be not only a talented and skilled dog trainer, but a skilled instructor as well. And so there's a whole other layer of skill acquisition that's really important to being an effective group class teacher. One of the real positive pieces in terms of the impact that you can have as a dog trainer with classes is that you reach a lot more dogs, right? For every hour that you're training, you're working with, 4 to 10 dogs, as opposed to one at a time with private training, which we'll get to shortly. Now, on the other hand, you do have less time with each of these dogs, right? You're not able to to customize the training that's being done to them per se. And the impact then is going to vary quite a bit. Now, it's not that you don't have the capacity for a profound impact. Puppy class, for example, can have a profound impact in terms of prevention. Any entry-level class, whether it's puppy class or basic manners, has the capacity to set dogs and their people up for a lifetime of success with each other and do a lot of work in terms of prevention. Sports classes and other kinds of specialty programs can really deepen the bond and relationship between dogs and their people. But on the other hand, you're not solving behavior modification issues. Classes are going to be a little bit less likely to have a large impact when things have already begun to go wrong in the dog and human bond. Now, in terms of revenue, classes can really range. They absolutely have a high revenue potential, particularly if you're building a larger class business. You imagine the difference between running a small handful of classes on your own versus having a thriving business with multiple instructors where you're offering 30, 35, even 40 classes a week. So there definitely is a range there depending on size, but there is a very significant revenue potential at the higher end. But also have to recognize that there's a lot of seasonal variation. This is going to depend somewhat on where you live, but it's not uncommon at certain times of the year, particularly during the winter holidays and the summer months, to see a dip in registrations. And so there's some work that needs to be done in building a business around that, both in anticipating those revenue valleys, but also getting creative about working around them as well. In terms of challenges, we talked about needing to add the instructional skill to your toolbox. Classes also have a heavier admin load. There are a lot more moving parts. You're working with a lot more clients. You'll need an automated registration system in order to keep that admin work from becoming overwhelming. Also, really good policies make a large difference as well, so that you're not struggling to keep up with makeups and that sort of thing, which is a common mistake we see in the industry. And the other thing to be really aware of with dog training classes is that of all of the different kinds of training services that you can provide, this is the slowest startup. In general, it takes a lot longer to get a class program up and running, even a small one where you're just teaching a small handful of classes yourself in any given week. If you think about it, this makes sense because there are a lot of stars that have to align to fill a class, right? People need to know about it, and the day and the time need to work for them. And so it does take, and you need more people to commit to working with you at once, because again, for each hour that you're teaching, you're looking to have multiple dogs in this class as opposed to a one-on-one situation. So these are just some things to think about. So let's contrast this with private training, which comes in a number of different variations, and we'll start with coaching, which is kind of the sort of old school traditional way of providing dog training. And this is something that by and large is phasing out these days, and largely for good reason. So let's look at this. Coaching is basically the idea that we're working with clients one-on-one, usually in the client's home, unless you have a facility. And in coaching, the focus is really on teaching owners to train their own dogs. And so again, you have to have, some really good human teaching skill. You're not working with dogs really all that much. The dogs are present, but you're really looking, by and large, to build the training skills of the people that you're working with. And the results then are very dependent on the clients. They're dependent on the client's ability to acquire the skill set. They're also, the results are very dependent on the client's willingness and capacity for doing the work, for setting aside the time that it takes, especially given that they're going to need much more time than a dog trainer because they are using a real novice set of skills. They're not going to be as fast, they're not going to be as efficient, they're not going to be as effective. And so one of the things that we often see with this kind of training is that the process is much slower, and results tend to be less than optimal. It takes a lot more effort to get where you need to go because one of these big challenges is client compliance. Revenue is a little bit challenging with coaching as well because the onus is so much on the clients to do the work. It is often very difficult to get clients to commit to longer packages that produce a more steady income stream for trainers. So coaching is very much a revolving door. You're always having to work on getting more clients in, getting more clients in, getting more clients in, which means a real emphasis on marketing and sales, which most dog trainers find very uncomfortable. And you're looking at needing to have quite a large client load. On average, a dog trainer who's working full-time is probably running somewhere around 18 to 20 appointments a week, which means juggling 18 to 20 individual clients and their dogs and their training plans. And so, there's a lot of work that goes along with that as well. So this is a challenging business model to keep afloat at the higher level, which means that revenue does tend to be a little lower and much more variable. Now, fortunately, there's another way to provide private dog training, which is through day training. And day training you can sort of think of as essentially board and train without the boarding. So in this model, you're still meeting with the client once a week, the same as you would in coaching, but you're also working with the dog individually several times a week in between the weekly training sessions. So the idea here is that you're training the dog and then you're transferring the results to the clients and teaching them the smaller, more limited skill set that they need in order to maintain the results that you've attained for them. So one of the things that's really interesting about this model is that dog trainers get to train dogs. You actually spend 3/4 of the hours that you're paid to train in a week. So if you're doing the same 20 hours a week, you're spending 3/4 of those actually hands-on training dogs, which means you're getting much stronger results much more quickly for clients. You're also working with far fewer clients at a time. In fact, about 1/4 of the clients. And so, a full-time day trainer is usually typically running 4 cases at a time, which means that your admin load is much lighter and your revenue is much more steady. You imagine that it's a lot easier to keep 4 clients in your pipeline at all times than it is to keep 20. And so that's really powerful. Now, there are a couple of challenges in day training. One is that it requires a limited service area. This system doesn't work very well if your clients are spread out among a wide geographic distance, because it means that you're spending more time in the car than you are training dogs, and it makes it difficult to maintain full time. And also the revenue is not easily scalable. Now this is true for private training coaching as well, which is that one dog trainer can only see so many clients at a time. And so to scale means having to bring on another skilled dog trainer onto your team. So that's something to keep in mind as well. On the other hand, this kind of service does command a much larger fee because clients are much more willing to pay higher fees to have the work done for them than to learn to do the work themselves. Another version of private dog training is board and train. This is not always feasible for all trainers because it requires either being able to bring other people's dogs into your home or having a facility. But if you have the occasion to do this, it's definitely a service model worth taking a look at. One of the things that many trainers who do board and train really appreciate is the high level of hands-on time with the dogs, that you get so much more time to really make a difference, have an impact, and strengthen the training. And you're going to see much stronger results, particularly if you're able to do it in a home setting, because those the results that you achieve in a home setting are more easily transferred to the client's home setting as well. And so that's very powerful. Now, of course, the impact that you have is greatly dependent on the ability to successfully transfer results. And so one of the keys to a strong board and train program is creating and implementing a very strong transfer program. So that's something that you have to keep in mind as well. Some of the other challenges in board and train are just maintaining boundary. And you can imagine that if you're doing board and train in your home, for some trainers, there's a real sense of just being on the clock all the time, right? That you have the dogs there with you 24/7. And so if you struggle to maintain work-life balance and work-home boundaries, this may be challenging. Some trainers really enjoy it. They really enjoy having, they just sort of incorporate the training of the dog into their everyday rhythm. And for some trainers, there just doesn't ever feel like there's a downtime. And if you're doing this in a facility setting, that means round-the-clock staffing, which has its own challenges, both in terms of maintaining and managing good staff, and also of the higher overhead expenses. But all of that said, board and train not only has the potential to have tremendous positive impact for dogs and their people, very strong earning potential as well, because this is, again, another type of service like day training where you can really command higher professional rates in order to get the work done for clients. There's also an option of daycare and train. Now, many dog trainers run regular dog daycares, and dog trainers are particularly well suited to do that because we have the skills and knowledge to keep dogs safe and to screen well, to be able to make determinations about which dogs really are appropriate for daycare and who isn't, who really doesn't benefit from it. And also the ability to keep track of dogs behaviorally and make sure everything's going smoothly for them. But there's also the option, and this is something that's really been gaining traction over the last decade, of Daycare and Train, where dogs come either for a full day or a half day to enjoy the company of other dogs and to work on training. And in some cases, there are some daycare and train programs that work on behavior modification that may not incorporate the traditional concept of daycare, which includes interaction with other dogs. And so there's that possibility as well. One of the versions of this that we're seeing a lot more of these days is puppy daycare and train. Is bringing puppies in for half day to work on socialization and training and problem prevention. And then they spend the other half of the day in their homes to make sure that they are building their tolerance for alone time and avoiding separation anxiety risk. There are a lot of ways to have really powerful impact with the daycare and train model because you have so much hands-on time with the dogs, and so you can have very strong results. But it is something to consider that there is a higher level of client management, that you're interacting with clients depending on the model of your daycare, on a more daily basis. And so there is that aspect of it that's a little bit more complicated. It does require a facility, or if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where it would work, it can be done in a home environment very successfully as well. Some of the challenges, in addition to requiring the space to provide the service in, are that you are in a much more locked down schedule. And half-day daycare can really help alleviate the pressure of that. Full-day daycare can be challenging because it's very hard to fit in other things like running errands and doing your marketing, because you're spending a full day hands-on with the dogs, at least until the point where you've built the business up to a capacity where you can have staff helping with these challenges. Once you've done that, then you're faced with the challenge of recruiting, training, and maintaining and managing staff, which often turns out to be the most difficult part of running a business like this. And then, of course, as with any training where you're training the dog, you also have to make sure that you're building a successful transfer program so that what the dogs are learning from you, they learn to do for the people that they live with as well. All of this said, there is very high earning potential in a daycare and train situation. Now, that is something you have to be very mindful of, because that high earning potential can disappear very, very quickly if you've got too much staff overhead or too much space overhead. So that has to be balanced. There's a lot of numbers to run in a model like this, depending on whether you're doing it at home or you're doing it in a facility, what your staff to dog ratio is going to be, and that sort of thing. But the potential is quite high, and certainly, again, the kind of impact you can have, especially in programs like Puppy Daycare and Train, is very powerful. Okay, so we're looking at kind of all of this aspect of the training side of being a dog trainer, but it's really important to recognize that most dog trainers are business owners too. And I mentioned earlier that we take a look at the business side of dog training. So let's do that. The reality is that most dog trainers don't plan to be business people, right? Most dog trainers don't grow up as budding entrepreneurs thinking about having their own business someday. But the reality is that there aren't a lot of jobs available for dog trainers. And so the life of a trainer also typically, in most cases, is going to involve running a business and all that entails, from customer service to accounting to marketing to setting rates and policies, to deciding what your services are going to look like and how they're going to be packaged, to figuring out what your time management system looks like in order to to protect your downtime for yourself and with your family and with your own dogs. On the pro side, you're in control of all that. You get to make the decisions. You get to decide what your time looks like and how it's spent, who you work with, how and which problems get solved. There's nobody there who can tell you what can be done and what can't be done and where you have to put your time. On the other hand, that can be a con too, right? When you're in control, it can feel isolating and there's no one else to tell you what to do. And sometimes that's nice, and sometimes that is challenging and debilitating. How do you make all of these decisions on your own, particularly in a culture where we're so used to being told what to do and how to spend our time, both coming up in the school systems and also working for others, that suddenly having all of that freedom can sometimes be very, very difficult. And also, there's no one to write your paycheck. Your income is fully dependent on your own actions. And for some, that is freeing and the ceiling's lifted and there's so much potential. And for others, it's intimidating and it's frightening, and it's a source of a lot of potential anxiety. But There's some good news. So, if you are looking at becoming a dog trainer because of altruism, because of how much you care about dogs, how passionate you are about them, how much you want to help them, and not because you've had a fantasy of owning a business, if you're nervous about any of this, the really good news is that you can learn to be a great business owner just like you can learn to be a great dog trainer. It's just a skill set. It's just a skill set that needs to be acquired. And here's an advanced pro tip for you, something to think about as you walk down this path, which is that the most successful business owners in any industry, and absolutely including in ours, they don't do it all. They learn to delegate the tasks that allow them to focus on what they themselves do best. And that's one of the secrets to running a successful dog training business, is not doing it all, but balancing that with learning to do the pieces that really must be done. So when we think about the training side of business and of being a dog trainer and the business side of being a dog trainer, let's step back and think about the context that all of this happens in. What do you really need to know to become a professional dog trainer? The first thing you have to understand is that dog training is an unregulated industry. Unlike other professional industries like medicine or law or accounting, for example, there is no legal body that tells us what we need to know and how we should do our work in order to do it professionally, ethically, safely. There's no one who oversees this. And on the one hand, that provides us a lot of freedom, but that freedom comes with some really, really important ethical implications, and also some challenges. I mean, for one thing, there's no clear path. There's no clear path to becoming a dog trainer. It's not like becoming a lawyer where you have to go get a certain degree and then you have to pass the bar exam, right? So that could make it really challenging to figure out how to do this, how to make it happen. Also, because there's no set standard either, it's really important to take a professional stance to set yourself apart, to show potential clients that, and gain their trust by showing them that you know what you need to know as a professional dog trainer. And so let's explore what that is. What do you need to know? I promised at the outset that I would share with you the 2 steps that you need to take to become a professional dog trainer, and to launch a successful training career, and to really set yourself apart. Let's take a look at those 2 steps now. The first step is dog behavior and training education. It is so easy to fall into an I already know dogs ethos, right? Most of us grow up with dogs. We've loved dogs all our lives. We've lived with dogs all of our lives. And there's sort of a sense that we already know them. And obviously, I'm preaching to the choir or you wouldn't be here. And I truly applaud you for that, because we owe it to the dogs and to the people who love them, to these dogs and people that we serve. We owe it to them to learn all we can about dogs and dog behavior and training. We have an ethical obligation to educate ourselves in this unregulated industry that gives us control over the well-being of living beings. And we can't give in to the hubris of thinking that we know everything already that there is to know. Because the reality is that if you ask any professional dog trainer what they've learned in their professional careers, they will tell you how eye-opening it is once you start really learning, once you set down the notion that you already know it and dive in to real education about dogs. It's almost overwhelming. There's this just tremendous, intense sense of how much there is to know. There is a professional knowledge and skill set. These are a completely different species from us. We can't assume that 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 just from having lived with them that we understand how they tick. There is a whole rich science behind this that informs the decisions that we make as dog trainers. It is eye-opening. It is fascinating. It is passion-inducing. If you think you're passionate about dogs now, wait till you start learning how their minds really work. It is awe-inspiring. And it also allows us to be the very, very best at what we do, at changing dog behavior, at understanding the needs of dogs, of communicating those needs to the people who live with and love them. It is powerful, powerful stuff. It's also a little challenging because in an unregulated industry, how do we tell a reputable school apart from the rest? There are so many options out there. How do you choose where to start? Well, first of all, choose a program that teaches scientifically sound, up-to-date, positive reinforcement-based training. We're so fortunate to live in an era where the science of dog training has come so far and where we are able to teach dogs anything we want to teach them, solve the behavioral issues that they and their people struggle with, all using force-free, humane training methodology. The industry really has come so far in that way. And so keep yourself on the cutting edge of that by choosing a school that focuses on science-based positive reinforcement training. Also, look for a school that's going to balance learning theory or your book learning about dogs and dog behavior, essentially how dogs think and learn, and also that's going to really develop your hands-on skill implementing that knowledge, learning the concrete methods and strategies for changing dog behavior. There are some programs out there that really, really focus much more on the book learning theory aspect, and some that have plenty of hands-on skill development, but aren't backed with more of the book learning. It is so important to have both. Your hands-on skills with dogs are going to be so much richer if you understand the why behind what you're doing, and there's no point having the why if you don't have the strategies and methods and mechanical skill to use that knowledge. So from a content perspective, these are the two pieces that you're really looking for in any program. Then there are a few other considerations, of course. One is making sure that you're choosing a program that fits your budget, that is something that you're going to be able to reach for. And there are quite a few programs out there these days that provide payment plans, which is very helpful. One thing to be very grateful about as well is that though the best dog training schools out there are not cheap, they are a fraction of the cost of pursuing a degree for any other career, for example. We're very, very fortunate to be able to be part of an industry where there's so much capacity to make a really solid financial living with such a low investment up front. Your school will have to fit your budget, but do keep in mind that relative to any other career with this kind of income potential, we're very fortunate when it comes to investing in education. You'll also want a school that suits your schedule and your time constraints. And your timing goals. Some programs are weeks long, some programs are months long, some programs are years long. Some programs focus all on weekends, some programs focus on evenings, some programs are more self-paced and allow you to fit them in around your own schedule constraints as you see best. Some programs are intensive where you're going to go away to the school and get it all done at once. There are a lot of different formats that these schools come in, and so that's something to keep in mind as you are looking at potential options for yourself. And finally, make sure that the program that you choose provides the best structure for your learning style. If you are really good at self-discipline and like to be able to go at your own pace and take whatever time you need to take the material in, then a self-paced online program may be a really great fit for you. If that kind of discipline doesn't work so well for you and you really need a much more interactive learning environment, it may be that you want to choose a program that is a little bit more hands-on and directive that way. And so really thinking about what's going to set you up for success. We're fortunate that there are so many options out there these days, and even the online programs have a lot of variation in the structure and how they work and the amount of support that's provided and that sort of thing. And so that's just another aspect to look at. Now, you'll find a downloadable list that comes along with this web seminar in the resources section of this class, a downloadable list of highly regarded, reputable, science-based schools. These are schools that you choose, you're going to be in great hands. All of the schools on this list will provide prestigious start to your education. And I say start because, of course, one hallmark of being a professional in any field is a commitment to ongoing education and professional development. And you're going to find that the most successful and respected trainers are those who continue their education throughout their careers, adding additional school certificates and certifications to their list of credentials, belonging to and attending the conferences of professional associations like the Pet Professional Guild, commonly referred to as PPG, or the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, commonly referred to as APDT. They take advantage of online courses and web seminars, and they read books, etc. And speaking of which, you'll also find a list of recommended reading for dog trainers in the resources section of this class as well, that you may find helpful for beginning to build your own professional library. The reality is, like I said, the most respected trainers, and these are trainers even who've been training, for 20 years or more, are still constantly learning. And it's really no surprise. I mean, for one thing, dogs are so fascinating, but for another, we have to stop and remember that we're so used to living with them that we often overlook that they are a separate species from us. And so, of course, the learning opportunity just never ends. So I hope that this helps a little bit with step one, choosing your dog training education. And step two in becoming a professional dog trainer is going to be your business education. And as I alluded to earlier, many trainers fear the business side of the dog training equation, and they let that either deter them or by ignoring the business side, let it drag them down and miss the kind of potential for success that they would otherwise have. The thing is, though, without business success, you can't have training success. You can't be a dog trainer if there aren't people who are willing to pay you to train their dogs, and that means building a thriving business. And that's everything from learning how to structure your services, not just making the choices among which of the services you'll provide, as I talked about earlier, but also how you'll structure those, how you'll set the rates and the policies for them to make sure that you set yourself up for financial success and the dogs and people up for training success, how you'll package those services to make sure that people and dogs get the amount of training that they really need, and that your services are structured to bring in the income that you need for your household. How to market your services successfully in a way that is comfortable to you, in a way that's ethical, in a way that serves your community. Marketing is so critical, and it's often the thing that trainers are least comfortable doing, but it's a skill set like any other, and you can learn to do it, and you can learn to do it in a way that feels really in line with your own ethics and values. You have to learn how to manage the administrative side of your business in a way that it doesn't take over your life. I mean, you want to be out training dogs, not sitting at your desk, right? But a certain amount of this has to happen. You have to learn how to work on the business, not just in it, in order to have a business to work in. And also just learning to avoid the common business errors that keep so many dog trainers from making a solid, reliable living. So the business side of education is so important as well. And this is the side of education that we here at DogBiz specialize in, and there are a number of ways that we're here to help. One is through our DogBiz University courses. We have a wide range of courses we're constantly adding to. Two of the classes that I would recommend taking the hardest look at here at the beginning of your dog training career is our class Starting a Dog Training Business from A to Z. This is a 6-week guided course that walks you step by step through how to start your business and includes active guidance from instructors. And we also have a transition planning class for dog trainers. So if you're at a point where you know you want to do this, and you need to learn to start the dog training business, but before that even, just trying to figure out how you're going to make the transition, how you're going to move from your current job or career to full-time dog training while still maintaining the income that you need right now to live on. That is a class designed specifically to address that issue. We teach you how to build a personalized, customized transition plan to get you from where you are now to your dream of training dogs full-time for a living. If you prefer a more personalized hand-holding style of support, our friendly business coaches can guide you through the same startup and startup of your business, the growth of your business, transition planning, and providing structured support in a one-on-one way throughout the process. And also, if you find it challenging to navigate the education choices, choosing which class to take, our consultants can also help you choose the right dog training school and overall education path for your goals as well. And then we also have a whole suite of ready-made solutions to just get your business up and running faster. Our business toolkit for trainers has all of the paperwork that you need to run your business, including contracts for classes and private training and board and train, all of your intake forms, and dozens and dozens of other pieces of paperwork as well. We have a ready-made public class curriculum, professionally designed curriculum for puppy classes and basic manners classes and beyond. Our marketing toolkit is a whole collection of ready-made, already designed marketing projects for you that are just ready to be branded and executed. And we also have business success packages which provide steep discounts to get you various combinations of everything that you need to start and run your dog training business, so that you aren't having to start all this from scratch. You're not having to reinvent the wheel, and you can get going more quickly. So just a few resources to be aware of as you start your journey. So, ready to become a superhero for dogs, also known as a dog trainer? We are so excited for you and for all of the dogs and dog lovers that you'll serve over the course of your career as a dog trainer. There really isn't a better way to put your career where your heart is than making your living as a dog trainer. Your first step is to chart and begin along your education path by choosing and attending a reputable dog training school. And once you've done that, your second step, we'd love to see you come back to DogBiz for any business education or support you may need. Our business is to help yours succeed. We're passionate about that, and we'll be here waiting for you. If you have any questions now or at any time along your path to becoming a dog trainer, or any time once you have become a trainer, please don't hesitate. We really are here for you. You can reach out with questions at any time. You can visit our website for more information, or reach out by email or phone. We'd love to hear from you and support you in any way that we can. All of our best from everyone here at DogBiz. Best wishes to you for your dog training career.